Hey everyone, this is Reese and Joel over here at KlientBoost. Joel's the director of PPC over here at KlientBoost. I'm a senior account manager here, and so for today we'll be talking about how to ace the PPC interview. So I'm pretty excited about this topic, and I find it pretty fun because you interviewed me for this job, but now I get to interview you about interviewing.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little pressured here.
So this is these guys' second webinar relating specifically to the last one that had myself, Aaron Sagan, and Matt Umbro talking about how to accelerate your PPC career. And so for the second interview by Digital Creative Institute, who was the founder of America's first digital marketing program or apprenticeship, which I also did. So it's founded in San Antonio and Austin, Texas for digital marketing and PPC professionals. So today, like I mentioned, we'll be talking about how to ace the PPC interview, and who better to talk to than one of the guys who might actually be interviewing you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having us on, and I'm really happy to share any input that I can have to help everyone who's listening to find that right job for them and ace that interview.
Awesome. Yeah, so I know like one thing that was on my mind when I first started interviewing for my first PPC jobs is how can you really make and I think this applies to any interview really, how can you make that interview more two-way, more conversational? That way you don't just like walk in and get asked a bunch of questions.
Right. Now, that's a really good question, and I think it's a really important question as well. In my mind, the idea of a perfect interview is an interview where it's conversational. And I don't feel like someone's on the spot and I'm asking the tough questions and I feel like there's a little tension in the air. Mm-hmm. That, in my mind, that's not a comfortable interview. So how to make it conversational? My best advice, honestly, is just be yourself as best you can. Be comfortable, be confident without being cocky. But confidence is a really important thing in our industry. And it really shows. I like to think of the interview, I like to almost put myself in the spot of a client. And I like to think that, okay, this is a person, an account manager, a prospective account manager that will eventually be speaking to clients. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to feel like I'm the client right now. How would they speak to me?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I like to feel comfortable. I like to feel confident. So my best advice was just go into it confident, go into it comfortable, and just make it a conversation as opposed to an interview.
Do you have any examples of any icebreakers that people have asked you while they're interviewing, like anything that they've done specifically?
Yeah, no, so that's, so first of all, I'd like to say at the start of the interview, I always like to drop a little joke. I think I'm pretty funny. I don't care if people don't agree with me. But I like to make a little joke or ask about something or anything, just a random thing, how their drive was to the office or if they found parking okay. Just to make it a little bit more conversational, and so they release a little bit of the tension, and I can meet the actual person I'm interviewing. But one example that stands out, it's pretty funny, and it actually helped this person get the job, was I was drinking water during the interview, just in a cup like this, and I missed my mouth a little bit, and it spilled on my shirt. I didn't think the person I was interviewing noticed, but they did, and they put me on the spot for that. And the candidate I was interviewing said, I saw that. So I thought that was funny. I thought it showed confidence, and it broke the ice a little bit in the environment. So I like that. And that person ended up getting hired.
Awesome, yeah.
Not just because of that joke, but that helped. And it's something that I still remember. So that's an example of just, being comfortable.
Yeah.
Just being yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So once someone's able to kind of break the ice a little bit and you're finding yourself in the conversation with the person who's interviewing, what questions that pertain more directly to like the company or PPC should they come prepared to ask?
Yeah, I think it's really important to ask about the company. It's important to do your homework and to do your research. Because again, going back to what I just said earlier, I like to put myself in the shoes of the client as if this is a client. I can imagine that this is a prospective account manager speaking to a client right now. I want them to go into every call very well prepared and knowing what they're talking about. They know the company that they're speaking with. They know that their client that they're speaking with. So if you did your research and we have, KlientBoost has a lot of content on our blog. I would say like one thing that's a no-brainer, KlientBoost, that is associated with KlientBoost is SKAG, single keyword ad groups. If you don't know if you're not familiar with those, KlientBoost is big proponents of single keyword ad groups. So I think that's something that would impress me if you knew that going in, and you knew about our agency, and you knew about our humble beginnings and how we've grown. We even have a blog post about how we grew so fast. Those are what I call glue, like those giving the little unexpected extras, which we like to provide to our clients as well. So if you did that extra step and you asked those questions, that shows that you did your homework, that gives a lot of bonus points in my mind.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I really like the acronym.
Glue. Yeah, we're all about acronyms in PPC.
And so if someone is really wanting to work somewhere like KlientBoost,
right,
but they don't have a ton of experience yet, then what can they do in that case? Like if it, I think it depends on the position they might be interviewing for, but like let's say they really want to go for an account manager position, what can they do to kind of help improve where they're at if they don't have a ton of experience?
So I mean that's tough because you can't fake knowledge necessarily. And if you can, I like to think I can pick up on that with the types of questions I ask. And if I catch that you're faking knowledge, that's like a big downer for me. So I would say just know what you're applying for. Know what you're applying for. If you're applying for a senior account manager position, you should have somewhat of that knowledge of a senior account manager. But that's not at least at KlientBoost, that's not the only position we hire. We hire senior account managers, we hire regular account managers, and even account coordinators. So if you're just really looking to get into the industry and you don't necessarily have the experience, I would recommend apply for that account coordinator position. And you're really going to get the knowledge so much faster working in the industry, in an agency, whether it be a KlientBoost or any other agency. And that account coordinator, at least that KlientBoost, that account coordinator position that's where you can absorb all the knowledge, without having maybe the pressure of being the client-facing account manager just yet. It's a great opportunity. And in the interview side, if I'm interviewing account coordinator, I'm looking more for the soft skills. So someone who can have an easy conversation, someone who's very confident and comfortable. I keep repeating, I feel like I'm being very, very redundant here, but it's very important. So know what you're interviewing for, come prepared, and it doesn't hurt to do a little bit of research before you go into the interview and sharpening your skills if necessary.
Yeah, definitely. When someone does have a little more knowledge and experience, what do you think are some of the best ways that someone can show that off?
So I think that's going to come out naturally in the interview. I do like to ask some technical questions during the interview. So I think that's your opportunity to kind of showcase your skills. If I feel that the interview is going well, then I might even dive into an account. I remember with Reese in your interview, we actually dove into one of the accounts, and to Reese's credit, the advice that he gave, actually we did that in the account, and it actually ended up getting some pretty good results. So yeah, I mean, I just again, make it a conversation, and if it's going well, I'll go into an account, and that's your opportunity to shine. Don't be bashful. Even if I don't agree with it, you'd be surprised just the confidence and if I could sense that you have that knowledge. Let's say you don't work with SKAGs, single keyword ad groups. We believe in them here, and that's what we preach. But if you don't, that's okay. We can talk about that, and there's no right or wrong answer in PPC. That's the beauty of it. I've seen accounts that aren't set up the way that I would do it also perform very well. So if you're confident and you know what you're talking about, I mean, let that flower bloom. Just shine. When you have the opportunity, take advantage of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm curious too, if you could talk about how some of the questions that you might ask, how those might vary at different skill levels.
Yeah, so the types of questions I might ask. So if I feel like it's more of an entry level, I could ask stuff about how they run a test, or how do you know when to conclude a test. If I'm looking a little bit more advanced, a little bit, maybe I'd ask about, okay, how do you use Google Display Network? And I'd like to see kind of if they understand the difference of how Google Display Network is used, if it's more for brand awareness, or if they expect to get a lot of conversions from Google Display, whatever it is, how they use Google Display. Would they build a placement campaign or a topic or interest campaign? As long as I know that they're dropping that knowledge that they have on there, that really helps me. If I really want to throw them a tough question, or if I feel like it's wow, they're acing every question I'm asking. Sorry. sorry about that. I would probably ask a question, something around like analytics, or maybe something around attribution modeling, like how they would maybe use last click attribution versus first click attribution, and why. That's a tough question. Self-admittedly, that is a tough question. And I don't know if I were interviewing for an account manager position a couple years ago, I don't know if I'd be able to successfully answer that. But it's okay. Again, even if you can't answer it, the way you work around the question, and I think that shows a lot. So
cool. Yeah. Awesome. So we kind of talked a little bit about some of your favorite paid search questions,
right?
And some that are a little bit more technical. So on top of that, I'm kind of curious too, like I think we've talked a little bit about it, but like what makes one candidate stand out significantly from another one?
What makes one candidate stand out significantly from another? It's that candidate that is the total package, really. It's hard to find those total packages. They're not a dime a dozen, but it is, you know, an industry that I think it's a hot industry. A lot of people want to get into it right now. So at KlientBoost, we only want to hire potential superstars. If I see a superstar in you, that's when you're going to get the green light. So by total package, what I mean is you have that technical knowledge, or at least the capability to learn the technical knowledge. But you also have, in my mind, what might even be more important is those soft skills. Again, going back to those, the communication skills. Someone who I feel like I can throw out an account to speak with a client, and they would be able to successfully build confidence in that client. So that's what I'm looking for, that total package. And I think we've done a good job. I mean, I would say Reese is a superstar in the PPC world. So I think we've done a good job with our interviewing so far.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm really curious too. So you've mentioned these soft skills a lot. I think it might be a little more obvious to find places to develop the more technical skills, since there are so many blogs and resources out there. Right. But I think something that's a lot less discussed in PPC is where to develop those kinds of soft skills, because we all know that being able to communicate well with clients is important. Right. So I'd be really curious to learn about, you know, which soft skills you identify as like the most important, and where you would like what resources you recommend to go develop those.
So to some extent, I don't think everyone can develop. I think there's different types of people in the world. You know, there are introverts and there are extroverts. Not that an introvert can't be an account manager. I wouldn't discourage anyone from trying to pursue their dream if it is something that you truly do want to do. But I think some people naturally have it more than others. And you can get those soft skills from anywhere. I mean, we've hired people, we've had account coordinators that, I mean, that were waiters or salespeople, I find usually do have those soft skills. It's positions where you are exposed to speaking. And, you know, you do have to think on a whim, basically, because you will be put on the spot very often as an account manager, having client calls or emails, whatever it is, with your clients, and having the confidence to be able to answer those. That's important. So how to develop those? It's a natural thing, but I think you can start even with your friends. You know, go out, don't sit in the corner and you know, let the conversation pass you by. I think it's a good trait to be able to know when to lead a conversation and when to follow the conversation, and picking up on communication cues. It's an art in my mind. It really is an art. So practice it every day. Practice it with your mom. You know, really practice it in everyday conversation. When you're ordering a hamburger or whatever, practice it nonstop. And I think with practice, you will eventually build your soft skills that I keep talking about, because they really are important in this industry, which I'm sure you can agree with.
Yeah, definitely. So, and you kind of mentioned like snippets of a couple interviews that you've had in the past. How would you describe like one of the best interviews you've had with an entry-level candidate?
Entry level, so I can't mention your interview.
No.
So your interview was very successful. We actually brought Reese in from Texas to interview, and it was worth it. It really was. Sorry, my throat's acting up. With an entry level, an example of a successful interview.
So you could talk about like how someone, I mean, in this case, you mentioned like a lot of people more at the entry level, you're looking more for those soft skills.
Right.
So I mean, kind of learning about like how someone really was able to show those off.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's hard to give a specific example of one where they were soft skills, because every entry level person that we did hire, it would have been based off of those soft skills, because they didn't the reason they're entry level and they're typically account coordinators is because they didn't have those technical skills. So I think all of our coordinators that we did hire, they were able to show me those skills. But one example where I can say one of the coordinators that we hired that really stood out to me, it was one that I was a little bit, not that I was maybe on the fence on, but I had to think about it, because we were only hiring one of this position at that time, and we had several good candidates come through, and I needed a differentiator to kind of put them stand up, make one stand out above the other. So there was one who I was really interested in, and he followed up after the interview, waited a couple days to follow up, which I really appreciate a follow-up. Good follow-up is always worth a lot in my mind. And it was very quality follow-up, asking me about, like, he really enjoyed it and what the next steps, if anything else, if I had any other questions. So one thing that I thought would help differentiate is if he was able to get his Google AdWords certification. And it was a Friday, I remember. And I mentioned to this candidate, I said, it would really help if you were to get your certification. That weekend, I got an email from this candidate. Not only did he get his fundamentals, he also got the advanced certification in search. And I think he was telling me I'm going to do my display and another one of the advanced like that later that week. In my mind, I was like, okay, this guy means business. Not only did he impress me with the soft skills, I love the work ethic, the motivation. And on top of all that, I felt like he truly wanted to be at KlientBoost. He truly wanted to be at KlientBoost, which is really important, because I only want people who want to be here. So that said a lot to me, and that person also did end up getting hired.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so, I think we focused a lot so far on a lot of the positive factors and positive things people can do to have the best rate of success in an interview. But I think it'd also be good to talk about, just for a little bit, any common mistakes that you've seen when interviewing applicants, and any things that have kind of made you want to cut the process short. That way, we can kind of learn what those are and how to correct them.
Well, the first thing is if I feel like it's an uncomfortable interview, where if they're quiet or not answering me with one-word answers, that's a turnoff for me. If I feel like I'm dictating the conversation and I feel like I have to read a list, I don't want to read a list of questions. I have questions set up during the interview that I can ask if necessary, but I just want it to be a conversation. Yeah. And if I feel like I have to go off a list, that's a red flag for me. Because then I feel like, how would they, again, going back to with clients, is that kind of how that level of intimacy that it would be with the client? We're just reading off a list. So that's a red flag for me. Something else where I'd cut short is if you overstate your knowledge, or you kind of exaggerate what your knowledge is. That's a big red flag for me. If you say, oh yeah, I've done display network, I'm really good at display network, and then I kind of get into more specific questions of display network, and I find that you don't really have the knowledge base that you kind of implied that you did, that's a big red flag for me, because I'd be honest with you, you can get away with not having that knowledge base, in my opinion. But to not be straightforward with it, that's something I'm not going to let you get away with. So that's kind of when I will have to kind of wrap up an interview a little bit short. But yeah, I think just if you can avoid those types of mistakes, you should be fine.
Okay, cool. And so with all that we've talked about so far, like, are there any additional things that you would want to put out there, whether it's someone who's more entry level or someone who's more experienced, like any additional things that you would really want to emphasize to anyone who's interviewing for a PPC position?
I mean, I think if you're really passionate about it, and if this is really what you want to do, in my opinion, it's going to show in the interview. I mean, I can say in your interview, I know that you are a PPC guy. Like, this is what you want to do. And I could tell that even before we actually invited you out for the interview, flew you out from Texas, in our conversations on the phone. I was really excited to speak with you in the interview, genuinely, because I felt the passion that you have is the same passion that I have about PPC. So if you have that passion, you can't fake it, in my opinion. I really think you can't. And it'll come out in the interview. I think an effective interviewer will find a way to have that come out in the interview. So my best advice to anyone out there who is looking to get into digital marketing and wants to land that job with that dream agency that they're looking for is to be genuine. And if you're passionate about it, let that passion show during the interview, and don't hold back. Ask the questions that you are curious about, because that's the time to ask them. Don't have any regrets on your drive home saying, oh, I should have said that, or I should have asked that. Just make it a conversation.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So it sounds then like some pretty big keys would be to like just be authentic and kind of let your passion show, and be like totally like curious about the questions that you do want to ask.
Yeah, and do research on the company. That helps. It truly does help to do research on the company. And come prepared. Come prepared to the interview. I think those are keys to success interviewing for your dream agency.
Awesome. That sounds good. Well, I think those are just about all the questions that we've got. What I'll go ahead and say is I definitely encourage everyone to go ahead and join the PPC Professionals Facebook group. You can interact with people like me and Joel there, and we post about different things that are going on, and it's just a really cool community where you can ask questions related to PPC and interact with other PPCers. So definitely encourage that. It's a lot of fun. And I think that's about all we've got. So definitely want to thank everyone for joining, and thank Digital Creative Institute for sponsoring the webinar. So that's what we got.
Yeah, good luck out there.